Welcome. The webinar will be getting started in just a couple minutes. If you want, go ahead and type in the chat where you're from. We always like to see the breadth of the folks that attend these webinars. Today is EDDMapS 102. Last month was EDDMapS 101. We were talking about the basics for folks that may not have been introduced into EDDMapS, and this is the extension of that. Sacramento, California. Whew. Starting off with one pretty far away. Always good to see you.
So we ask that you ask your questions in the question and answer option, so that those are all contained in one easy place for us to see. But yes, you can put in the chat like where you're from or anything like that. These office hours, if this is your first time coming to it, these are about an hour long. We try to make it so the first half hour is just a presentation, whatever that presentation might be, whatever that topic might be. And then the rest of the time, the rest of the 30 minutes is the opportunity for us to answer the questions that come in through the Q&A box, as well as anything that comes up that may be related to EDDMapS or to the Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health in general.
I think we are going for the award for center with the longest and most difficult to say name, Center for Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. Takes a full breath. Those of you that like the short version, Bugwood, always works. We know who you're talking about.
Bugwood or Bugwood Network is what it was called before it was called for the center. And so you might be familiar with Bugwood in terms of the image system. There are images available through several different websites that are part of the Bugwood image database. And so you might be familiar with those, that aspect of what we do. That's been around for, Chuck, how long has the image database been around for?
Yeah, at least 20 years, maybe. It was launched in the actual Forestry Images website was launched in 2001. So 22 years this summer.
Yeah, back when Chuck was in high school.
Well, the website wasn't launched when I was in high school.
Right, but
Started collecting pictures before the website was launched. So
right, but you don't look like you're in high school anymore. I'm sorry to say.
right.
Well, and before there was the website, there was the CDs.
Right. Yeah, but you had to photo CDs, which probably some of the folks on here do not even remember.
Well, if they're interested, I think we have some still floating around the office. If you want a historical copy of where Bugwood came from and where we are now.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and wrap up our banter. It's now 11 o'clock and we like to respect these people's time.
Mm-hmm.
So our talk today at EDDMapS 102, that is Rebecca Wallace leading us on.
The first question, which I can go ahead and answer, will a recording of this session be available for later review? Yes. And I'll mention this throughout. We have lots and lots of training materials. You can see my screen, correct? Just cover.
We can.
Okay, good. The various tools, the various features I'm going to be talking about, a lot of them are available on our training page. So if you hover over the tools of training, click on training, you'll see that we have tons of training materials, including past office hours videos. So there's EDDMapS 101. If you didn't get a chance to attend the 101 session, it's right there, and that leads you to YouTube, so you can watch the YouTube video of it. 102 is right here, and that's because it's happening right now. After this is over, it'll be loaded into YouTube and it'll show up again down here under the February. Next month is actually the EDDMapS Summit. So that'll be a much longer event. It won't just be an hour. We'll have guest speakers, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to click on the April one, it'll take you to the sign up form for that. and give you additional information about that. So I'll go ahead and get started on the topic that of EDDMapS 102. So last time we talked about distribution maps. So if you go to the distribution maps page and you click on, we'll just pick Japanese honeysuckle because that's starting to bloom. It takes you to some of our standard maps. So this is the county presence map. I fully believe that, you know, this Bourbon County in Kentucky has a Japanese honeysuckle in it. We just don't have a report there for it yet. So if you're in that area, want to stop through and be the first in county report for that, we'd appreciate it. So these are the standard maps. So we've got, oh, look, future abundance habitat. That's new. Awesome. I didn't know that was released. State map, county map, point map, went over all of that last time. So what I want to talk about is the custom maps concept. So if we go to the tools page, you'll see that there's custom maps right at the bottom under database tools. If we click on that, that takes you to maps.eddmaps.org. And here's where you can build some of our custom maps. Feel free to work with us on trying to get to the exact type of map you're looking for. Some of the things you need to know to build these maps might not be something you're familiar with. But if you hover over any of the tools, the menu bar at the top, it'll show you what types of county maps you can create. So if we want to do a species compare map, this gives you a little bit of information about what this is. So you can compare county level occurrence for up to 3 species. And if we go to this link, we'll just pop it in a new tab there. This is comparing 2 species, kudzu and kudzu bug. And in the bottom right, you'll see that there's a legend down there that tells you what the different colors mean. So yellow is where only kudzu is present. Blue is where kudzu bug is present, but we don't have a record for kudzu yet. And green is where kudzu and kudzu bug both occur. So you can do different types of maps like this with maps.eddmaps.org, which is the custom maps link on the tools page. I just wanted to make sure that you guys know this exists because we have a lot of people who will email us or who are looking for a specific kind of map. They think they might have to download the data and do all this stuff themselves, but we do have these as options. Another interesting one is last report. So when was the last time this species was reported in a particular area? Sorry, there we go. So in this case, again, it's kudzu. And you can see we have recent records for kudzu with the darker color blue, and it tells you how many times, if you hover over it, how many times it was reported, when was the last time it was reported, and so forth. But you can see that in some of the other areas around, outside of Georgia mainly, there's a lot of areas where the last time it was reported was 15 years ago. In some cases, this is useful for, you know, if it was reported one time 15 years ago, is it even still there? Do we need to go looking for it to see if it's still there? Things like that. So these types of maps can help you in monitoring, management, you know, evaluating maybe long past populations, things like that. So again, if you go to the basics, that'll help you with some information about how to use the maps. And then we have point maps, county maps, state maps, and other types of maps, including, you know, like tickers. So you can put those things on websites you might have to know when things were reported, things like that. Again, a lot of what I'm talking about in EDDMapS 102 is concepts. I'm not providing training on these different things. It's just letting you know these things exist and that there is more in-depth training materials available. So that's the custom maps. The next thing I want to talk about is bulk data. So I talked last time about submitting individual records through the website. I briefly touched on the EDDMapS app. The EDDMapS app, which I didn't demo but it's an app available for recreationalist reporting, casual reporting. You know, you're going hiking, you're going camping, you're taking a walk in a park. The EDDMapS app is great for casual type reporting, things like that. The more this is my job to report. That's where we get into bulk data. That's where we get into EDDMapS Pro. And I will show you EDDMapS Pro later. I made sure to set aside time for that. So bulk data, if you are, so again, I'm on the tools page. We have bulk data resources. And then there's two sections: resources for uploading data to EDDMapS and resources for downloading data from EDDMapS. There's the bulk data upload procedure, and then we also have templates and the data dictionary. A data dictionary is where we explain field names, the type of data that's in that field, and so forth. The templates in this case are Excel files to let you know for plants, these are the options. For insects, these are the options for submitting data. It also provides the standardized field names, things like that. So these resources exist on the tools page. Also, if you go to My EDDMapS, you'll see bulk uploads on the left. Again, if you have a small screen, this black bar, this black menu might be reduced down to this little icon next to the words My Dashboard. So you might have to open up this menu. If you have a small screen, it'll auto collapse. So if we click on bulk uploads, it'll take you to, you'll have options for uploading data. You'll have helpful resources. Again, that's another place where the procedures talked about, as well as the templates and the data dictionary exists. So you can upload your data or you can view your uploads. So if we go to upload data, what this is, it's a file uploader. It's literally just where you can put your files and they'll come to me. This isn't an auto uploader situation where you can put your files and they'll automatically go in, like the records will automatically go in. There's a formatting step, and I am the person who formats the data. I do data checks, things like that. So this is for submitting data. You can't submit any file, just any file type. There are specific file types that we accept. Excel files, CSV, ARC files, QGIS files, like geopackages, things like that. Those are the file types that we work with. The main types of files I get are Excel files and are ARC GIS related files. So those are the ones we work with most often. We do get geodatabases. We have gotten access databases. Those haven't typically been able to be worked with, because when you send someone a database, you need to tell them how to use it, and nobody has ever told me how to use their database in that respect, their access database. So anything that needs interpretation, that needs to be provided to me. So that's something I talk about with our bulk uploader. So even an Excel file, if I can't figure out what the file, the field names are, things like that, that's where I have to exist to help, to interpret those files so they can go in. So I work with the uploaders on interpreting their files so they can go in. When you add files, so if I put files in here, let me, so I'm going to drop a file in there. So this is an Excel file, and you'll see it says one file queued. If I click upload, it's going to start asking me questions. These are all questions about this data to help me interpret things. It'll ask about what type of file it is, what type of data is in there. And there are defaults sometimes that exist for the data in a file. We try to get those taken care of, things like that. So these are things to help me interpret the information in the file. When you're done and you go through the questionnaire, it'll upload and it'll alert me that there is a file to be handled. Like the other data that comes in through the website, through the apps, there is still the step of the data needing to be reviewed by a verifier. So that still needs to happen. So again, this is for, I am a person whose job it is and potentially has data I take on a monthly, yearly basis. I have existing data, things like that. For the casual reporter, that's what the website's for. That's what the apps, the EDDMapS app is for. So this is kind of all about the bulk uploader. If I go back, you'll see view uploads. This is where you can see the status of an existing upload you have. I only do testing with this, so everything says either removed or uploaded or whatever. So yours will have things like new, pending, needing information, things like that. And again, once the data has been uploaded into the database, it still needs to go through the review process. The next thing I wanted to talk about is, so now we've got data in here. What if you go back to that location? Again, I am a person who, this is my job to know what the status of an existing population is. There are 3 ways, 4-ish if you count the bulk uploader. 3 ways most people can submit revisits. If you're on an individual record page, you'll see there's all the information about that record, images, maps, whatever. In the top right, there's the revisit record option. So if you've been to this location recently and you've seen what's going on there, you've got pictures, whatever, you can click revisit record and it'll take you to the revisit form. It'll be very comprehensive. It'll have some of the existing information from the previous record filled out. So you can change like the infested area, you can update, the polygon if a polygon exists, things like that, add images, so on and so forth, and then submit the record. And that is the revisit to the existing record. The revisits are not individually reviewed like an original record is, but verifiers and whatnot are notified that a revisit record came in, so they can elect to handle that if it needs to be handled. The other way to revisit records, so with this way, you can revisit anyone's record. Again, going to, this is not my record, this is Jeffrey Flory's record, and revisit is an option. If I want to revisit one of my records, I can either go through here like I just did, or I can go to my reports. And you'll see on the right-hand side, there's under the manage heading, the third option is revisit. That allows you to, let's say I'm going to revisit, let me find one that's, sorry, I just put in a bunch of beech leaf disease data. Let me find. Yeah, haha, where'd you go? Okay, here we go. Japanese climbing fern. So say I want to revisit that record. Again, it fills in Japanese climbing fern, it fills in my current date. That's where I saw it. So again, I can make any changes I need to make, and say instead of it being 1 acre, maybe now it's 3 acres, and so on and so forth. And then again, scroll all the way down, submit report, and then I have a revisit to this existing record. The other main way that people will revisit records is through the EDDMapS Pro app. I'll be going over EDDMapS Pro in just a little bit. I will kind of demo that a little bit more than some of these other tools I'm talking about, because there's a lot of features to it, and I just want to show where some of those features are. The next thing I want to talk about, again, on the left side is projects. So if I click on projects, I've got dashboard, create project, explore projects. If I click explore projects, this takes me to the page where all of the publicly available projects are. I can see what these different projects are, any information they provide about them. So if I wanted to see Forestry Society invasive species monitoring, if I click on that, it'll take me to their landing page, just kind of what they're interested in, any information about it, what they're monitoring for. I have the option to send a message to the project admins. I also have the link to request to join this project. So it also tells me things like, here's it's just in New Hampshire apparently. So that's where they're monitoring for this list of species. The list of species, you'll notice, says allowed in this project. This is a list that if a list exists for a project, those are the only species that can be reported in it. They can change that list at any time, but right now it looks like there's maybe 20 or so species on this list, and those are the ones they care about in New Hampshire. So again, my options: contact admins or request to join the project. If I go back and again open up the projects, you'll see I have the other two options: create project and dashboard. If I'm starting up a project, the reason I might create a project is to unite data in a way that's not easily done otherwise. So if I just care about the plants in my county, you can get that information through the advanced query tool. But if you have a project where I want to, there was a project in Florida called Hallowweed, where they were documenting invasive plants around Halloween. It covered a larger area that wasn't, didn't have definite geographic bounds like a county does. And they wanted to know people submitting data specifically because they'd heard about this project, which you couldn't do if you were just getting all of the data over that time period. So if you want to know how successful a campaign is, an awareness campaign, monitoring, a treatment campaign, a project can help you do that. So creating a project, you can put your project information, name, all kinds of things relating to creating a project. Some of these options I see because I am a system admin, you won't see them, but you can put in your project URL. If you've got a page, you can assign roles, things like that. And you'll see subjects. So again, creating that species list, that geographic scope, things like that. Once you add your project, the people you've added to it, they get invited to participate, and then you'll have a dashboard. So if I click on dashboard, this is the information I see that is part of projects that I am part of. So you'll see records that are part of that project. You'll see information. Sorry, I have my screen magnified. I haven't zoomed in, so some of this stuff wouldn't actually be on a second line and cut all up. You can see number of people reporting using part of the project, species that are being reported in it, things like that. So you see some basic information relating to the project. Sorry, I was trying to look at the questions, but they're quite long. With these projects, you can see my records. So my records that are part of that project, the admin and the user, the average user, will be able to see the option My Records. Again, it's my records that are part of this project. If they go to this page, they can see, you can do some basic filtering on it. The other option is, you'll see this big green button that says Move Records. You can move records from one project you're in to another project you're in. If you accidentally put them in the wrong spot, that you can move them only if the receiving project allows that subject. Again, I talked earlier when I showed you that the Forest Society project where they had a finite list of species. If I try to move a species into a project that isn't accepting that species, it won't allow me to. But you can move records if you accidentally report them in the wrong project. Currently, the ways you get data into projects is by moving them or by using the EDDMapS Pro app. You can report into projects you're part of through the EDDMapS Pro app. You'll see with project admins, you get these additional options. So I can manage my project where, again, I can change the description, I can change species and so forth. Invite users, contact users. I can manage records. So if there are records in here in my project that shouldn't be, I can remove records from the project. I can't just add anybody's records to my project. The reporter decides where their records are going to go. The reason for that is if I go back to like my records, I think it'll say, if I go to the bottom here, project admins will be able to see information associated with records that is not typically available to the public. That includes private coordinates, names of anonymous reporters, the existence of unreviewed records, and not public records that are part of the project. So they get to see information that is not publicly available. That's the reason why the reporters, can elect where their records are going to go because of that privacy concern. And again, you'll see someone asked about moving records into a new project. So the project's created, again, you click on these little check boxes and you'll see the number changes in that move records button. That's how you move records into another project. Again, it has to accept that species if they have a species list. We have on our training page, if you go to our training page, there's the one of the previous summits. Joe did a talk on projects, and one of the previous office hours was all about projects as well. So I'm not getting into an immense amount of information about that. And I'm not doing a walkthrough of this because those already exist. The next thing I want to talk about is EDDMapS Pro. So the EDDMapS Pro app is for professionals, people whose job it is to report, manage, monitor, whatever, invasive species, pest species, and so forth. The app is free. But we talk about it in that way that it's for professionals because there are a lot of features that are designed with professional use in mind and rather than a casual observer. The main thing that a casual observer is probably going to use compared to a professional who has a defined work area and potentially a defined species list is EDDMapS Pro does not have a field guide. The EDDMapS app does. That's kind of a big defining difference between them. There are a lot of features in Pro that don't exist in the EDDMapS app. One of the things that, because I'm going to go way over. I didn't realize I'd taken so long. So Pro, the main things you want to do first is set yourself up on the website. So what you want to do, start with potentially my species list. This is the reportable species for Pro. Your Pro list is made up of your My Species list and the species list of any project you're part of. If you're part of a project that doesn't have a species list, then you can report any species because in that project, you can report any species. The next thing you'll want to do potentially is My Saved Queries. I talked about My Saved Queries in EDDMapS 101. You create your data set using the EDDMapS Advanced Query Tool, which is on the Tools page. These are data sets that, these are the recipes for data sets. The query is a recipe, so to speak. And you create that recipe, and then in Pro, you'll download the data set that is the result of that query. The next thing you might want to do is check out the EDDMapS Pro Tools link on the left. You have my county list, photo projects, project areas, and bulk revisits. Now, project areas, I believe we're renaming that to something along the lines of like my boundaries, because the project areas aren't tied to the projects. Project areas existed before the projects concept that I just went over existed. My county list, these are the counties that you would regularly do work in. This My County list covers in the app the counties you might want to download data for and the counties you might want to download background maps for. So you would set up what your county list is. These are basically all the counties I've done demos for. Photo projects, think of it along the lines of takes me to, interesting, takes me into projects. So photo projects are, I want to document a visual record of the site. They're not tied to a particular EDDMapS record. I'm looking at a site, there might be 15 different invasive species in the site. I want to know what it looks like from year to year. That's where photo projects come in. And then project areas. This is, I want to have a visual on the background map of an area. Again, we're going to be changing these to like my boundaries. These are KML files. You can either upload one or you can draw it. That's what the draw KML button is. And you can share these KMLs, these boundaries. It doesn't do anything with the data. It's just putting a shape on the map, and that allows you to navigate around that shape. So if you're working in a particular area, or if you're trying to avoid working in a particular area, that's where these can come into play when you're using EDDMapS Pro out in the field. I am going to now try and, here we go. Oh, hold on one second. All right, I'm going to try to do a quick run through of Pro, just to give you an idea of what it visually looks like. So I don't actually, whoa. All right, so when you upload, when you turn on Pro, you get, if you're in an area with signal, you get the background map of the area you currently are, and a little icon that indicates marker where you are. In the bottom right, you have your how you want to start the record you want to add, if you want to add a record. In the top left, there is a menu for interacting with your photo projects, your county data sets, your custom data sets, so on and so forth. Again, the project areas will be named to like my boundaries. Downloading background maps if you're in an area with no cell service. That's where your upload queue and additional settings exist. What you want to do before you go out every single day that you're going to be using this app, if you go to any of these different things, so let's say custom data sets, these are my custom data sets. Refresh my data sets, make sure that I didn't add anything, download any data sets that I need to. So let's download Plants Georgia. And refresh data sets if you've already downloaded them. You want to go to your upload queue, and I probably should have picked something a little bit smaller. Go to your upload queue, make sure all of your uploads are submitted that need to be submitted, things like that. So right now I've downloaded Plants Georgia. The checkbox will turn it on. You'll see on the right now I've got refresh and trash data sets. If I go back to my map, these are, you're now going to see, forget how I zoom in and out using this particular program. So I can then interact with these points. So view details, and I mentioned earlier about reporting revisits through Pro. If I click report revisit, it'll take me to the revisit form. and I can fill it out. It's a lot smaller than the form we saw on the website. Fill out the information, save it, and it gets saved to my upload queue. There is a way, it's killing me. I can't remember how to zoom in and out here. Let me see if I can. Sorry. There we go. If I click in the top right, there's additional menu settings there, and I can change what type of background map I'm using. I can display certain things. I can also filter the data showing up on my map by types of reports, date ranges, species, things like that. Once I let's check that, show unreviewed records only. Now it's added the clear all filters, so I can go back to the base of what I would see, because sometimes I've opened this, added data, and went, where's all the data? Is because I had too many filters applied. So I mentioned earlier about different things here. So again, turning on and off, downloading, showing different project areas like that. So I'll show you quickly what a project area looks like, hopefully. So this is what a project area looks like. It doesn't interact with the data at all. It just shows you the area you're interested in. I mentioned in the bottom right about starting a record. So you can start by taking a photo. You can start by dropping a marker, drawing a polygon, using your current location, which I have a very large error on my location. We also have a new feature called Walk a Polygon that allows you to walk an area. It drops points in the area you're walking, and it draws a polygon for you. That was released a couple months ago. So anything you do in here, revisits, photo points, things like that. Oh, it went away. Anything you do in EDDMapS Pro, it'll add it to your upload queue. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you'll want to upload that before you go out the next day. Anything that's still in your upload queue, nobody else has access to. It's not in our database. It's not anywhere except on your phone. So I kind of went through, like I said, concepts about these different things. I went in a little deep on a couple of the topics I wanted to talk about. But I think it's a good time for questions now. So I see who can request to be a verifier. I mentioned this in 101. There's request to be a verifier link on the left here. Anybody can request to be a verifier. Generally speaking, the verifiers we add tend to be people who are actively working in invasive species, pest species, things, biocontrol, things like that, and are experienced in identifying the species in a particular geographic area. We do work with our partners to vet the people asking to be verifiers, and in some cases, our partners are the people who are adding verifiers for a particular geographic location. Jordan asks, is there a way to narrow down a search on a map to recent years to show increasing or decreasing sighting data? So I think what you're talking about there would be under the advanced query tool. So in the advanced query tool, so I'm on the tools page now, and we've got advanced query tools. That's a link there. And so you can use the advanced query tool, and we even have this fancy new walkthrough to help you learn what these different fields are and what you can do with them. And so you can download the data in the area you're interested in, say by year, and compare the records that are coming out from there. So you can use this this tool to help you get that information. You can also in Pro, I mentioned those filters, you can turn on and off some of those filters to see things like, have there been any revisits in the last 6 months? What records haven't been revisited in the last 6 months? Or observation date, things like that. So there's a number of different ways you can use the existing tools to find out that kind of answer. What should you do if multiple records are,
Actually,
I'm sorry?
I'll add in on that one.
Oh,
that
okay.
We also encourage folks that if they need the map on their website for a various outreach project that they're doing, that they're allowed to embed them. And when you are doing those custom maps she showed in the beginning, most of those maps accept some sort of way to modify what data is being shown on the map. So an example of that, and I'll just drop these links in the chat. My Fields is a program run out of Kansas State, great group out there. They set up their own website. They have their own things going on, but they didn't want to have to necessarily deal with building out all the maps and things that you'd like. This website, they're using the maps directly from us, embedded in their page, and you don't really notice so much that it's us, and we're okay with that. That map's limited only to the 2022 data. So when people are going over to EDDMapS and looking at the county map that we have, we're showing it for all time because just different pages, different purposes. So if you find yourself looking at something going, you know, I want to be able to sort through the data myself, but you know, maybe I want to use a map. Yeah, we have ways to make those maps filter down to pretty much whatever you want to be able to do.
So the next question, multiple records already published at one location. So there are going to be situations where in a small area, the same species has been reported multiple times. In some cases, we've worked with our local partners to make those other records, like find the oldest record, make that the original record, and then make every other record a revisit. We've done that in a couple cases. I don't suggest just another point on top of points on top of points. So if you can pick, say, the closest and oldest record to do a revisit for, that's probably the ideal situation. We don't have a way for a user to make a record, someone else's record, a revisit of another record. And in some cases, even though records are close, it makes sense to keep them as separate records instead of auto, like we wouldn't do it all over the country for every species, that within X distance make the same species revisits, because there are property lines to consider. And so it makes sense to keep records on different property ownerships separate in some cases, because maybe there's a treatment history going on at one or whatever. So I would say that if you can make a record a revisit of the closest, you know, existing one, that makes a lot of sense. But we, like I'm saying, we can't just wholesale on our own collapse all of the similar ones or the same species ones that are close by into one record with revisits.
We do some analysis of the data in the system and then later suggest to folks that maybe we should consider grouping these things together.
Yeah.
It tends to be very case by case, because for some of the insects that people report in the system, is that really the same population, or is this talking about something like a migratory moth that comes up from the south every year and, you know, little different situations. So a lot of variety in that.
The next question is, I'm using EDDMapS Pro on iPhone. What's the difference between county records and custom records? That's what I was telling about earlier. So if we go to my EDDMapS, The My Saved Queries, those are your custom records. So you'll see I've got, you know, I showed you earlier plants in Georgia. That's plants in Georgia. If I actually go to, here we go. So if I click on that, it runs the query. This is all of the records for a particular county. But if I go to, here we go, knotweeds. This is a custom query that I created for 3 species of knotweed in a county. So when I download that to EDDMapS Pro, instead of having to do in-app filtering, I have as close to the exact data set I need. It also reduces the overall size of the data sets. So instead of, if I look back at Berkshire, I'm probably mispronouncing it. You'll see, so with this data set, I've got, you know, over 3,000 records. But with this data set, which is the same county, but just those 3 species, I have 49 records. So it makes for a much smaller data set, which allows you to have, you know, more space on your phone or tablet or whatever. So that's comparing the custom and the county records. Possible to report 2 or more species at the same time for a single site without filling out 3 separate forms.
And read the next one. This is in regards to a commercial applicator treating private property and needs to report across all of that for grant purposes.
So if you are, and I tried reconnecting my phone, I don't know why it's not coming up. Let me see if I can. There we go. Let's see if I can get it to come up. Gotta love technology. I did do that. It is connected. So if you are reporting plants, here we go. If you're reporting plants, what you'll see when you pull up maybe I could just click there. Yay. So if I'm just going to use my location. And I'm going to, let's do mimosa. Is that not an option in Pro?
I think we added is in the EDDMapS app, is not in
Okay.
Pro.
So if you're in, let's do EDDMapS. Here we go. New sighting. Add more plants. So if you're in the EDDMapS app and you're reporting a plant, you can add additional plants. The thing you run into with this, and I always caution people about this, because the EDDMapS database is a record, is a single species at a location on a date. If I add more plants, the more all these plants I'm adding, all of the images are replicated across all of these records. So this Norway maple record will have pictures of velvet leaf, will have pictures of Ummer maple, and so forth. All of the information, the time spent, the status, the habitat, the area, the density, all of that is replicated across those records. Let me just managed, say 3 and 25. So if I save that, do you want to include photos? No. I've now got 3 records in my upload queue. All of that information is replicated across those 3 records. Now I can go into these records and I can say, okay, well, velvet leaf, there was really only that much. And Norway maple, there was actually a lot more. And that's a way of, if you have a really complicated polygon or something similar, you know, that's a way of kind of fixing those records that way. But again, you would have to remove unrelated images, things like that. So it's really, it's there. You can do it. You can only do it for plants, and you can only do it on the EDDMapS app, but there is that functionality that exists.
Well, different take on the same question. She's talking about a commercial applicator treating private property.
Mhm.
Can I do a bulk revisit?
You can. So if I go back to, thank you for asking that, Joe.
No problem.
If I go back to my EDDMapS and I go to EDDMapS Pro Tools on the left, there's the bulk revisit option in the bottom. So you can say, loads, zoom and search. Okay. So can I? Okay, so let's see if I can. I only ever use this to demo since I'm not revisiting. And what is, click on the map, search icon, here we go. Oh, I need to zoom in further. Makes sense. All right, let's do a little bit further. Search, there are my records. So I can then turn on and off the records that I'm revisiting. I think, where's there it is. Sorry, again, I have my screen zoomed way in. So I can also say, okay, I'm a roadside person. Everything on this roadside, I revisited. And so then I can select those. And this is my bulk revisit option. So revisits will be made under the logged in account. They'll subject, the species will match the original records. The location will be the same. And then I can say, okay, I treated all of this on this date. These are my comments, and submit. So you can essentially lasso a bunch of records that you do essentially a bulk revisit. It's a very reduced form, as you can see. So the revisit form from Pro is a lot more, let me, clear filters. There we go.
And one thing, Rebecca, we're going to be adding to that page that you were just on, the ability to upload a KML file. So if you know the area that you were working in and you have it as a shape already, then you will be able to upload the KML. It'll show up on the map, and then select the records within that boundary box.
Okay.
So and it's also going to show you the size of the boundary box on the page as well. So those are two things that are in development that should be available in the next couple of weeks, actually.
Fantastic. Even I learn things in these office hours at times.
Yeah. We get a lot of feedback from our users, and that's actually where the EDDMapS Summit coming up is a great opportunity to say, here's how I use this, and here's what I'd like to see from the future. Because in the EDDMapS Summit, we get the priorities for the coming year of development, how to make this better, how to make it work more seamlessly for what you're trying to do. So good pitch for EDDMapS Summit. If you want to provide feedback on these systems, you can always email any one of us, but you can also participate in these open opportunities to give us feedback, and we can make your job just a little easier.
So I just put the link to register for the summit in the chat, so everyone can click on it and go register, and it'll be fantastic.
We have a lot of fun doing this kind of stuff because EDDMapS is all taxa, all settings. We work in row crop, in soybean, in corn. We work in cucurbits, we work in pecans, but then we also work in natural areas and rangeland and pasture and yeah, good times.
So, any additional questions? We've got 7 minutes left. So if you have any questions, either about any of the advanced features I talked about, if there was a question you had from the previous 101, or, you know, if you have questions about the summit coming up, anything like that, I'm happy to answer. Or Joe or Chuck would be happy to answer. Again, this was not a big walkthrough. It was a very like, these are the concepts and the features and the tools that exist.
And I'm going to drop in the chat right now. If there's other topics you want to hear about in the future, email us, bugwood@uga.edu. We're always looking for different topics to throw in here so that we can have a nice, you know, cover the topics you want to hear about. We've stopped short of doing Ask Me Anything sessions where it's like, yeah, let's just sit in a room for an hour and field whatever question comes up. So,
Yeah, so we have got a question, essentially treating a large area for multiple species. So 5 species in 100-acre pasture, how can we avoid making 7 reports? Can it all be in one drop down? So that's where, again, the having your species list. So if you've got just the Colorado list A and B in their example, you can add species to your species list. Those are the only species you can report in addition to whatever projects you're part of. And so you don't have to hunt and search for all the different species that you're reporting. We don't recommend drawing a 100-acre area when you've got, you know, clumps in random places over that 100-acre area, because it doesn't make it makes it seem like the whole 100 acres is infested to one degree or another with species A, species B, species B, C, so forth. But making a report is pretty quick. Again, if you're talking about the EDDMapS Pro form, I can draw a polygon real quick. Let's say this. I need to select my polygon. Whee! So let's say that area is infested, and I'm done. I'm adding my species. Take some quick photos. It's automatically filling out the date. I select private, or not, depending on if the coordinates should be publicly available. I've already got my location figured out. I can either fill out time spent or not, infestation status. You just click whichever one you want, additional notes, and save. And that's as long as it takes to fill out one report form. It's not an extensive process. For some people, the longest thing might be to draw the polygon, if it's a very complicated area. If you find that polygons are not necessary, maybe it's just a small clump of something, you can drop a marker. And I think, there we go. You tap and hold and then place. At least that's the way it is on Android. I am demoing these things on Android. And then, there we go. Pick out the species. Again, you can search. I've got a long list because I'm part of a lot of things, but again, you might only have 10 species. I mentioned projects earlier. You can, depending on what species you pick, that'll be the projects that are available to you for reporting in. And then there we go. Oh, that's right. For Pro, you do have to potentially select some additional information. And there we go.
And that's really the reason why for the more professional users, don't have the multi-species option in Pro, because it's trying to make it where you quantify how much of that species is at that location. And so, yes, you have to do multiple reports to make that happen. But just to follow up on that, it's also how much of what you treated was this species versus that species.
Mhm.
You know, how much of the area was covered and what kind of density are you looking at? And that really gets to be useful when you start changing, showing change over time.
So someone asked the question about reporting negative. There's in the EDDMapS Pro app, again, you're just, let's just use my location for this. I can say, I looked for mimosa, did not find it. That's what that negative option is. You're not going to have any photos. You're not going to have a density or anything like that because you didn't find it. So it was not there. Save. Now I have a negative report for mimosa right where I am. You can draw a polygon for that. I looked in this area and did not find mimosa. With the EDDMapS app, so if I go back to, if we go to the home page, there's negative survey. So you can pick the list of species. I looked for Colorado's list A, which you're going to know the species that are on there, and you can either search for them like you would normally, or you can go to your own personal list that you've created. Add the species. So let's say I looked for those. And then I'm going to say I spent 30 minutes. Sorry, the whole zooming in thing is a problem.
Yeah, Samsung Dex doesn't let you zoom in.
Yeah, I know. Okay, we'll just do it. We'll just do a point. Done.
In the simulator, that in the mirror thing, it doesn't let you.
Yeah, that's what Dex is. It's the on the apps you would pinch and zoom and all that, like normal. So, and then not found. Save. Oh, sorry. There we go. Let's try that. Let's see if that. There we go. Zoom to me. Like I said, it's done. Let's see if there we go. So now I have crepe myrtle, mimosa. It's once it goes into the actual database, those will be separate records.
Negative surveys are an exciting way of getting that data in. It's very valuable data.
Mhm.
It's as important to know where things aren't as where things.
Yeah, so in Georgia, negative surveys would be really important for things like spotted lanternfly, because people are actively trying to monitor where that is. For new and emerging species, Nandina or sacred bamboos, it's a common name. It's starting to escape from ornamental plantings. Knowing it hasn't escaped in certain areas yet is potentially very, valuable information, as much so in some cases as where it is escaping to. Can EDDMapS records be used in ArcGIS? Yes. So when you download, I mentioned if I go back to, I'll just go to my saved queries, and we'll do the knotweeds in Berkshire again. Probably mispronouncing that. If I go here, it's running my query. I can download this data as a CSV, a KML, or a shapefile. The shapefile is actually a geopackage, which is an open source format for a geodatabase. You can open that in ArcGIS. You can open that in QGIS and do whatever you need to do in there. So I answered that.
And we're also working on a solution where the entire EDDMapS data set will be published to ArcGIS online in the NASMA standard format. And so you would be able to connect to the data, all the publicly available data. You'd be able to connect to that data set and also go in and download subsets of it through ArcGIS online.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and answer the one on where can we find info on EDDMapS for ag. I'm your contact for that. I just answered the question by typing it in. My email address is there. Feel free to reach out. A couple weeks ago, I also did a webinar on what's happening for 2023. So that's also there. And agpestmonitor.org. It's EDDMapS, but it's the ag focused stuff, and that goes into more details. So reach on out and I'll be happy to work with you on that.
I don't know where you put it, Joe, but it's not showing up anywhere.
It went into the answered questions section.
Okay.
I will grab it and throw it
Yeah.
in the chat for those
Yeah.
that, it's always fun trying to find your way around Zoom webinar.
Yeah.
And to answer the walk the polygon question, we are going to be, that's going to be one of the topics that's included in the EDDMapS Summit next month. So there's going to be a demo of how that's worked with walking as well as worked with driving, and then how you can edit the polygon once it gets to the website, just to clean it up a little bit. So so stay tuned for that, because it's more than we can cover today in terms of how that works.
And that's, it's getting field tested and put through its paces right now by the folks in Utah, right?
Yeah, it's included in both the apps, and we've made some improvements since the first version. And the latest, we're updating the app right now, and one of the things we're adding is to keep the phone from going to sleep when you're doing a walk the polygon, because that will cause issues. So if you're kind of walking and you're touching it, and keeping it awake, or you've turned the go to sleep off, then it works fine. But we're adding a way where the phone does not go to sleep in that process, just to keep that from causing a problem.
And Joe, maybe you could answer Laura's question about, because she's an entomologist with the West Virginia Department of Agriculture. We also might be interested in having her as a verifier.
Right. So is there a way to contact a reporter or get more information of a given record? Specifically talking about kudzu bug. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce that county because I will hammer it. It'll just be sad. It looks like Kanawha. So that's where verifiers come in. Verifiers get to see all the details of a record. And they also get to see the contact information for the person that made the report. That's why we frequently have departments of ag listed as the verifiers, because when something comes in, state plant regulatory officer for insect and pests and diseases of plants, pretty much king of the castle, or queen as the case may be. We don't mess with the regulators. We follow their rules and make it all work. So reach out. It makes sense for West Virginia to have access to that. We work with a lot of folks. That'll also help you understand a little bit of who else is seeing things. It may lead to us even discussing well, when there's a report coming in, there's certain fields that you'd really like to have filled out. It's where we get into custom report forms and maps specifically for you to help those outreach efforts. It is true, we're happy if you build your own system for doing all these things and then interface with us to exchange data. But we're just as happy that if you want to use what we have and embed it into your websites and use us to help support those efforts, it's what we're here for. On the ag side, I'm directly funded to do that by USDA NIFA, National Institute for Food and Agriculture, through the Regional Coordination Program, or the Southern IPM Center. We don't have a lot of money. We've got maybe $10,000 to go support that, plus my time. But it's enough for a lot of this stuff. It's not hard to get people engaged, set it up, and direct citizen science programs to get everyone on board for dealing with these new and emerging pests. It's kind of the whole impetus for why EDDMapS came about. We were trying to provide a tool set that works for a large number of folks. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it decreases that bar for, I don't have to become the GIS expert for my department, for my group. I could rely on the expertise that's just been made available. And a lot of the things you see that are available are because someone else asked for it. We built it, we got it working, they tested it, and now it's available for everyone else to use. It's a bizarre business model, but it's kind of the role of extension to serve the public. And that's what we do. We're not for profit. We are part of the state of Georgia, and we all got to work together.
I will say that for her specific questions about how many, where, all of those things, that is on the reporting form. So this is the EDDMapS Pro. I said I found kudzu bug. I can say what the host species was, so kudzu, soybean, whatever. I can also say, you know, basically how many did I see? You know, it's a little different in here, but compared to the EDDMapS app itself, we still have kudzu bug. We can say what the host species was again. Did I see one? Did I see many? Did I see exactly 5? Well, there we go. Did I see exactly 5? I saw exactly 5. Yeah. And then, you know, habitat, I don't think we have like inside of home as an option, but we do have like ag field, right of way, things like that. So there is additional information coming in that way. There are ways we don't have that information because of bulk uploads and because of getting data from like iNaturalist. From iNaturalist, we're not going to get a host species. We're not going to get a count unless those are in the comments field. So as a verifier, you could potentially contact the reporter and ask those questions, but we do try to get some of that information, or at least make those fields available for the person to put in that information.
We're a little over time, but
Yeah.
we tend to answer questions until there aren't questions. So thank you all for sticking on as long as you have. You've got our email addresses in the chat. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. We're here to help.
So,
And do we have a topic already scheduled for the next office hours, or we're getting through the EDDMapS Summit?
it's the summit.
Yeah, so next month is the summit, and then we'll start doing the office hours again. And the summit again is on April 20th, and it's free. Just is the registration is through NASMA, who's partnering with us on that. So
Yep.
Hope to see you there.
And with that, this recording will be posted on the EDDMapS Tools and Training page in a little bit after it's made available. So we hope you all check it out again.
And again, the previous training sessions, we've got the EDDMapS Pro app walkthrough, all kinds of stuff available through our training page.
And someone was asking where the contact information was. Dropping my chat into the chat again, bugwood@uga.edu. That goes to the general account that one of us will check. If you want my exact email, there's mine, lawforest@uga.edu.
We also, if you're on the EDDMapS page, we have in the top right, contact us. So that leads you to the Bugwood contact page, which again has the Bugwood email address. That is an easy way to get a hold of us. And yeah, Joe's putting in the chat my phone's ringing. The email addresses for us specifically.
Yeah, they found your contact information.
They
right
found
there.
my
They're
contact
calling
information.
you right now, which we love to have.
Yep.
So.
So looking forward to all of you joining us for the summit, and at the summit, like we said, we'll announce what for future office hours will be. If you have any recommendations, questions, anything like that, that might be a good direction for us to go for future office hours, let us know.
Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.